I don't know, man. I love BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was a beast.
My favorite fighter of all time is Anderson Silva and Rampage Jackson.
My favorite fighter is Rampage. Rampage Jackson. It has been since the very beginning, and I would imagine that that's probably never going to change.
Your favorite fighter of all time? I'm gonna go Anderson Silva still. Anderson Silva is like when he was on his run, he looked invincible, and his striking ability. I love knockouts, and Anderson was my guy.
I mean, I gotta go to the guy I was once nicknamed after, my man Jens, Little Evil Pulver. Dude's a legend. I fell in love with him because he actually fought in the K1, and he's actually a wrestler. And he went out there and did his thing against the kickboxers, so that's my favorite fight of all time, probably.
I'm a big fan of strikers, so Jose Aldo, Anthony Pettis, like Showtime is one of my heroes, and Cub Swanson. Those three were my top favorite fighters to watch back then.
It's changed over time. Like, I remember when I first kind of was getting into the sport, Cain Velasquez was my favorite just because he was a wrestler and had a heavy pace. Right now, it's kind of changes, you know. Aljamain Sterling, you know, he's not in the room right now watching me or anything, but he's definitely one of my favorite fighters. Matt Serra is one of my favorite fighters.
Favorite fighter of all time who has inspired me. A long time ago I trained with Joachim Hansen, so he's one of them. And I'm a big GSP fan, big Bas Rutten fan, and a big Bruce Lee fan. So there you go.
Favorite fighter, Fedor Emelianenko on his prime.
Growing up, I grew up with Anderson Silva and GSP, so probably them guys, and seeing what they've done for the sport, so probably Anderson Silva.
My favorite fighter in Paradise is Kokap there, Tanner. Loves Kokap.
Favorite fighter of all time? Oh, it's a tough question. I have to go with the small guys. And I would have to say, you know, you were my favorite, did a lot for the division, for the small guys, so he'd probably be up there.
My favorite fighter is Anderson Silva. That guy changed the sport forever with the stuff he was doing back when he was in his prime.
BJ Penn. Well, other than Mark, I would say Cain Velasquez. I used to really like his style. Man, I love how he fights.
Who's your all-time favorite fighter? Inspiration? It's got to be GSP. You know, he's a mentor of mine. He's a great person outside the octagon and inside the octagon. He's a fierce competitor. You know, I really look up to him.
I really like Crazy Horse. He's like one of my favorite. Charles Bennett. He's nuts, and I love that style.
Favorite male fighter? Donald Cerrone. Favorite fighter of all time? Female-wise, Ugui Fuji was pretty awesome.
I've never really liked one particular fighter. I've always just been intrigued by anybody who's doing something that nobody else is doing. So, you know, BJ Penn at the time was a huge influencer for me. I like Stephen Thompson's style right now just because it's giving people such a hard time.
All-time favorite fighter would probably be GSP or BJ Penn. Those two are my all-time favorites.
Who's my fave fighter? Let's see. That's a hard one. I got so many, man. What kind of drew me to the UFC and competing in MMA was Lyoto Machida. Watching him with a karate base when people in the earlier UFCs were like, hey, you know, karate's crap, karate fighters can't make it in this sport. But when I first saw him doing work and knocking dudes out, I was like, man, I'm going to make that switch from kickboxing to MMA. And obviously I was training with George St. Pierre, who, you know, I would go up there to Montreal and he would ask me to help out with his camps. And he was my true inspiration to switch from to MMA, was George. But Lyoto Machida had a big push as well.
My favorite MMA fighter was always Fedor Emelianenko and Mirko Krokop.
Who's my favorite fighter? Fedor, bro, come on.
That's a hard one. I think I gotta say probably Dan Henderson or something like that. I think he's super cool for that H-bomb.
Who's your favorite fighter of all time? You know, there's so many great fighters, and
back in the day, for example, it used to be Fedor, and then it turned into GSP. Then Marcelo Garcia had a fight. I love Marcelo Garcia, especially his ground, so I was always like paying attention to that. Now I like Garrett Mousasi. I think he's just such a dangerous guy. And I also like Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson. I think he's a phenomenal guy. Just because they don't talk a lot and curse at everybody, doesn't mean they're, not a stuff, but phenomenal athletes, phenomenal technique, amazing.
John Jones, Anderson Silva, all the good names.
Favorite fighter? Gotta say Dan Henderson, because if I don't, he'll beat me up. Other than him, Anderson Silva. And then followed closely by Rashad Evans.
Eve Edwards, Jose Aldo, Uriah Faber, Joseph Benavidez, BJ Penn, the Diaz Bros, Fedor. It's part of my list.
All-time favorite fighter, that's a hard one, because I'm thinking about Fedor or BJ Penn, someone like that.
Time has to be BJ Penn, not because of the fact that he was the first two-time champion in multiple divisions, but I like him because he's such a humble person. Every time I've seen that man outside of the octagon, he's gone up and gave everyone hugs. He's wants to introduce himself. He wants to talk to them, and wants to sit there and just chill.
If you go back in the greats, obviously, Anderson Silva, he kind of shed the light on Muay Thai, bringing Muay Thai to MMA. So, I'd say, Anderson Silva is probably one of my favorite Muay Thai fighters. One of my favorite UFC fighters.
Yeah, growing up, when I was younger, Vitor Belfort was one of my favorite fighters, and I did get to meet him at one of the UFC weigh-ins, so it was pretty cool. Apart from that, I liked all those old school wrestlers. I liked Dan Severn, Coleman, who else? I'm like blanking on names right now. Don Fry. I got to meet Don Fry. He's a crack up, man. That dude is funny as hell.
I like George St. Pierre.
My favorite fighter is Muhammad Ali.
Favorite fighter? Rocky Marciano. There you go.
My favorite fighter of all time would have to be someone like Brad Pickett. Massive fan of Brad, always have been. And as well, I'd say Sean Shirk as well. Back in the day, he was the UFC lightweight champion, a guy that I try to copy my career off. But at the end of the day, I'm not 5'6" and built like a bowling ball. He was. But I used to love his style, and that's something that I've kind of taken into my fighting as well.
What's up? This is BJ Penn, and my favorite fighter of all time is Chuck Liddell. He's been my favorite fighter for years. The most famous guy I know. The man.
Who's your favorite fighter? That's me. It's got to be me. I'm the favorite fighter, favorite everything.